Hello and welcome back to the Lore Raider. Last week we looked at a video discussing why General Alex Miles was the worst military leader serving in the Galactic Federation. But today, let's flip the script. Today I want to take a look at a founding member of the Space Pirates, Ridley, and take a look at why he was more than just a screaming space dragon, and more importantly, how he was secretly one of the best military leaders we ever saw in Metroid. As stated prior, Ridley was more than just a loud, screaming space dragon capable of intelligence. He was a battlefield commander, a leader of men in the most literal sense possible. During the Battle of K2L, we see Ridley leading from the front lines and directing his men, telling them to be careful of not detonating the volatile affluorite they were trying to plunder, and as the battle raged on, he clearly made sure to keep in contact with his subordinates to make sure the task was carried out to his specifications. Whilst Rodney Aaron, a complete and utter badass in his own right, foiled Ridley's plans with his heroic self-sacrifice, the truth is, in those early days, the Space Pirates won far more battles than they lost, as exemplified by the later Massacre of Naishi, in which the Space Pirates handily overpowered and slaughtered the local population. Some of you may be asking, if Ridley was as great as a leader as we say, then why was he subservient to the likes of Mother Brain later in the timeline? That's because Ridley, despite being prideful, was well aware of his own abilities, and more to the point, his limitations. One of these limitations is that he gets easily flustered when plans go awry, as we see in the manga when a sudden explosion rocks the Zebes base. The Space Dragon is only calmed when Grey Voice, the Space Pirates' new commander, takes control of the situation and begins ordering the Space Pirates on a massive scale, and mobilizing them to combat the threat. Ridley was surprised by the way the old Chozo took charge, but never disrespected Grey Voice, and indeed embraced having a leader to bounce off of. Ridley was a brilliant tactician, someone who can make in-the-moment decisions, but was a bad strategist, and wasn't able to examine calmly the bigger picture on a battlefield. We see this again in Metroid Prime 3, and contrary to popular belief, Dark Samus did not mind control Ridley, as when Omega Ridley is defeated, no dark wraith comes to absorb his power. This means Ridley is willingly agreeing to obey Dark Samus, and once again we see the dynamic we saw before. Dark Samus was the architect of the invasion of Norian, Elysia, and Brio, and oversaw the wider invasions, only stepping in when she absolutely had to. Meanwhile, Ridley was the guy on the ground. He was left to oversee the battle personally as her second in command. All this is to say, Ridley was the kind of leader who didn't attempt to pretend to be better than what he was. He knew he had a niche, a specific set of skills, and he agreed to side with those who would allow his skill set to flourish whilst they covered his weaknesses. Near the end of his life in his final days, Ridley would also demonstrate another excellent leadership quality. He rarely ever demanded of his men what he wouldn't do himself. It would have been the lazy and easy route to send his men to capture the last Metroid. However, from experience, Ridley knew the Space Pirates would have no ability to catch the wild Metroids, let alone handle them. He went to SR-38 himself, and indeed very nearly succeeded, managing to actually pin down Samus and prepare a killing blow, only to be stopped by the infant Metroid at the last moment. After the battle, Ridley didn't try and call for backup and therefore waste time. Instead, knowing Samus would be close by, he immediately handled the theft aboard the Ceres base colony himself. And, for his troubles, he successfully captured the infant Metroid and managed to flee back to Zebes. In conclusion, Ridley may have been mostly recognized as Samus Aran's fierce rival, but what he should be remembered for is his ability to successfully lead his men during his early campaigns, his ability to work within a command structure and recognize his own strengths and weaknesses as a leader, and his seemingly good treatment of his men who he didn't send on suicide missions that he could simply handle himself. Well, you know how I leave you. Be safe, be wise, and please pray for a true peace in space.